Hi, scholars. The topic of this video is relationship selection, sometimes called attraction. Now, the definition of attraction is the tendency to look favorably upon another individual and have an interest in relationship with them. Now, there's two phases of attraction. Short-term attraction, sometimes called initial attraction, is an interest in potential for relationship. So we make kind of a snap or short-term judgment based upon limited information in whether or not there's some potential for a relationship there. Long-term attraction, sometimes called maintenance attraction, this is where your attraction to this person causes you to want to do all the work necessary to maintain a relationship. Okay, so we're going to be going over some of the determinants of attraction. This is nowhere near an exhaustive list, but these are some examples that oftentimes cause us to want some type of relationship with someone. And again, it could be personal, romantic, social, professional, whatever. The first determinant is similarity. We are more likely to be attracted to somebody if we judge them to be similar to us. Now you might think similarity in what way? Similarity in however we define ourselves. So if people who define themselves by their socioeconomic status, in other words, it's who they are as a person, they will typically be more attracted to somebody who is of a similar socioeconomic status. People who don't define themselves by that has no effect. They're not necessarily attracted to somebody who is similar here. Some people define themselves by their nationality. So therefore, they're more likely to be drawn to somebody who shares that nationality, is similar to them. Some people are defined by their religious belief or lack thereof. And therefore, they're more likely to be attracted to somebody who shares their religious belief or lack thereof. Some people are defined by their race or their ethnicity. And therefore, they're going to be drawn to somebody who is of the same race or ethnicity and less attracted to somebody who isn't. For those people who don't define themselves by their race or ethnicity, they're no more likely to be attracted to somebody from the same ethnicity as a different one. So you get the idea. Oftentimes, because it's how we define ourselves, we sometimes see it as universal. In other words, we think everybody defines themselves this way. And so therefore, when we see two people are attracted to each other that are different in something that we define ourselves with, then sometimes we'll think, oh, there must be self-hate there. The most common characteristic that people define themselves by is their age, their generation. That's why we tend to be more attracted to somebody from our generation and less likely to be attracted to somebody from a different generation. Now, many of you are probably thinking, oh, wait a minute, I got a friend who's 30 years old and dating somebody who's 50. There are differences. Maybe those two don't define themselves by their age. They'll say things like, age is just a number. But for those who believe that their evaluation or their interpretation of themselves based on age is universal, they will look at people from very, very different age groups being together with suspicion. They'll think there must be something else. You know, maybe one of them is rich, or there's mommy issues or daddy issues, or whatever it is. They'll try to attribute it to something else because it seems different for them. Sexual attraction and physical attraction I want to talk about together because they're often confused with each other, even though they're actually not the same thing. Sexual attraction is desiring sexual contact with the other person. Physical attraction is finding the other person pleasant to look at. So, to use some kind of extreme examples to help illustrate this distinction, one example that I saw in an interpersonal communication textbook once, you can find a sunset to be physically appealing to look at. You could not possibly want sexual contact with it. If you are, say, heterosexual, you can see in somebody of your same gender that they're physically good looking. But if you're heterosexual, you would not desire sexual contact with them. Okay, as examples. So they are fundamentally different. Now, with physical attraction, there's two schools of thought here: idealism versus the matching hypothesis. Idealism believes that there is some sort of an objective ideal, a look that everybody would agree is attractive. The matching hypothesis differs with that. And idealism was the dominant paradigm for a very long time. But with matching hypothesis, they would point out how oftentimes the quote-unquote ideal is also the one promoted by the media. And when they look at media in other cultures that might promote a different look, their people are attracted to something very different. So they would say, apparently there's something else here. So what the matching hypothesis says is that we are more likely physically to be attracted to somebody that either is similar to us in some part of our appearance that we like, or if there's some part of our appearance that we don't like, they're different. So in other words, if we're really tall and we like that about ourselves, we're more likely to be attracted to somebody who is also tall. If we're tall and we really don't like the fact that we're tall, we'll actually be more attracted to somebody who is not, in our view, tall. So that's why we get the beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Next, the next determinant is proximity. Proximity is really meaning the opportunity to communicate. The more you're able to interact with somebody, the more attracted you're likely going to be, because the more likely it is that you're going to perceive some potential for relationship. If it's somebody you never talk to, there's very little opportunity to a relationship there, and therefore it decreases the attraction level. Textbooks use the word proximity because geography used to be what defined your opportunity to communicate. We now know, of course, that isn't the case. So we still use the word proximity, but what we're really talking about are the opportunities to communicate. So in the test bank, there is a true or false question that says, despite growth in technology, geography is still the defining characteristic or defining determinant for attraction. And the answer is false. Technology has made geography less of a significant role. Still plays a role because who you're close to, you've got a better chance of communicating. Person sitting next to you in class, probably going to communicate better with that person than somebody clear across the country. But it isn't the same as it used to be. The next one is reciprocity. We are more likely to be attracted to someone if they communicate that they're attracted to us. We're more likely to like someone if they like us. Now, there are exceptions to this. For example, if we believe that their liking of us is based upon the fact that they really don't know us, so maybe they have a real exaggerated attraction, a real exaggerated interpretation of us, and we know that we're not the person that they see us as, then really we believe that being with this person is likely going to lead to that person being disappointed, it's going to lead to fighting, it's going to whatever, we can actually kind of pull back from that. And there's a theory called the social judgment theory. It's outside of the purview of this class, so we're not going to spend a lot of time on it. But basically it says we have an opinion, like an opinion of ourselves, and emanating from that opinion is a range of opinions or attitudes we're willing to accept as being sincere. We may not agree with these, but they're close enough to our attitude that we think, okay, this person might actually see that. When somebody has an attitude way off from that, then we oftentimes see it as insincere. We see that person as just fundamentally different from us, or whatever. So reciprocity, though, generally, we're more likely to like somebody if they like us. Next is complementarity. We tend to be more attracted to somebody if their needs are fundamentally different from ours. And I'm not just talking about affection, inclusion, and control. Just in general, their needs. So for example, somebody who has a lot of financial problems, so they have a need for money, they're more attracted to somebody if that person doesn't have a need for money. If their need for money is really low, such as that they've got a lot of money. If somebody's got a lot of money, they tend to be, so they have very low need for finances, they tend to be more attracted to somebody who has a high need for money. Now you might think, well, I can understand why the person who needs money is attracted to somebody who's got it. Because if you need money, oftentimes you think, gosh, if I just had $1 million, it would solve all my problems. And if you ever get the $1 million, you realize actually there are other problems that'll be there waiting for you. But there's a feeling like, gosh, I wouldn't have to worry about rent. I wouldn't, like, my car breaks down, no problem, just go buy another one. I could go travel. I could have fun. If I lost my job, who cares? I got plenty of money. So they see like all their problems would be gone. What do you suppose the person with a lot of money, why are they attracted to somebody who has financial struggles? In all likelihood, what it has to do with is if you save money and you put money in the bank or in the stock market or whatever, and you get a higher number, and then next time you get paid, put more in, you get a bigger number, and you're doing this and you build it up towards like over $1 million, and then you look at it and it's like, wow, that's what my life is? All of my work, all of my effort is just putting in a bigger number into a computer somewhere? Somebody who has financial worry, all of a sudden they can personify that money, that work that this person did, it can have a purpose. Here's somebody that I care about, that I can help. I can see the impact that I'm having on this person or this family. And so oftentimes we are drawn to somebody who has complementary needs because our needs can better be met from that. Next, personality. It's kind of a catch-all. Includes things like sense of humor. If somebody is funny, has a good sense of humor, they make people laugh. When we laugh, we become happier. So being around somebody with a good sense of humor makes us happier. Charisma, confidence, charm, etc. Finally, the last one we're going to be talking about is, traditionally this was called spiritual attraction. It can certainly be called that. Ethical attraction, moral attraction. This one is that the person lives in accordance with their own espoused values of morals or ethics. So it's not that they have the same values of morals or ethics as we do. That would be similarity. This is that they live up to their own values. So if somebody talks a lot about how important honesty is, we're more attracted if they're actually honest. And this goes back to the expectations. Again, relationships are about mutual expectations. If somebody talks about how important honesty is, and they lie all the time, then the person has to think, well, if I couldn't expect you to live up to your own values, what expectation could I possibly have of you? So hypocrisy, because it is fundamentally lying, it damages those expectations. So we tend not to be attracted to somebody who fails to live up to their own expectations. Sometimes in the media or in groups of friends, somebody will say that everybody's got a double standard. Well, if somebody talks about how important it is to be honest and to be morally upstanding and to do all of these things, and then they don't, that does rub us different than somebody who doesn't actually say that we should be those things and isn't. So hypocrisy can be really damaging to how attractive somebody finds you. And that's what this last one is really about. So thank you very much for watching. Thank you for your attention. And I will see you in the next video.